Okay, so here's the thing. The Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family, and the ones that started it all. They're the backbone and maybe the most important group to Marvel Comics. Like, there's legitimately so many aspects and characters from the Marvel Universe that were introduced thanks to the Fantastic Four. You could actually very easily argue that Marvel Comics and the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole wouldn't exist without this legendary team. And yet, even with that whole spiel in mind, in their nearly 65 years of existence, the Fantastic Four have never had a truly great theatrical release. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely been a good amount of attempts. There are now 4 officially released Fantastic Four films, thanks to the release of Fantastic Four First Steps. 5 if you count Roger Corman's unreleased film from the 90s.
It's Robin time!
And still, with all those attempts, there's still never been, in my opinion, a truly fantastic Fantastic Four film. I think First Steps definitely gets the closest to that, but even that film, I still have some issues with that I'll touch on later, I guess. But if the Fantastic Four are so important, then why does every attempt to bring them to life tend to fall kinda flat? Why do they keep missing the mark? And is there any film that comes close to what we the masses are looking for when it comes to a Fantastic Four adaptation? Well, let's talk about it. Before the existence of the MCU, the landscape of superhero films, specifically Marvel ones, were in a much different shape than we know them today. Marvel had just sold off its heavy-hitting franchises to fight off Chapter 1 bankruptcy at the time, and after some passing of assets, 20th Century Fox gained the film rights to the X-Men and Fantastic Four in an attempt to capitalize on this superhero trend of movies at the time. Specifically in the FF's case, Fox aimed for a lighter, family-friendly tone compared to the darker takes like Batman Begins and their own more grounded, realistic take on the X-Men, which led to the development of the Fantastic Four duology in 2005 and 2007, directed by Tim Story. With me being a 2000s baby and all, I'd be lying if I didn't watch these movies like religiously as a child. I feel like these films used to always play every time I was at my friend's mom's office when I was a kid. But like, nostalgia aside, were either of these films actually ever that good? I feel like these two movies both have the same two major flaws: the tone and the characters. Like I said earlier, the tone was very lighthearted, and in theory, lighthearted superhero films can work. We saw it with Raimi's Spider-Man films during the same exact time period, and we just saw it right now with the release of Superman. But with these films, I think it goes just a bit too hard with it. The humor in these films very often undercut any stakes that either film attempts to build up.
Hey, little guy. You're not afraid of me, are you?
But what was arguably worse was the characterizations of the team in these films. Or honestly, lack thereof. Ioan Gruffudd, even though he looked like Mr. Fantastic down to a T, watching these films again, I never really got the feeling that he was actually the smartest man in the universe. He more or less just came across like a socially awkward guy, rather than a genius. Chris Evans as the Human Torch, and Michael Chiklis as the Thing, were probably the two standouts for a lot of folks. You could really tell that Evans was having a lot of fun with these films, but the material he was given really only played into the surface level traits of his, like being cocky or a ladies' man, without touching on any of the deeper character layers. Chiklis did his best to add heart to his portrayal of the Thing, but most of his emotional moments were immediately undercut by the attempts of comedy. Jessica Alba as the Invisible Woman probably had it the worst, honestly, and at no fault of her own. Sue in these films was reduced to nothing more than the love interest for Reed and Victor to fight over, as well as being constant eye candy, especially with the constant use of the accidentally naked invisibility gag. Reportedly, Tim Story would tell Alba stuff like, stop showing so much emotion when acting so she could, quote, look prettier. Shit got so bad during the filming of the second one that she nearly quit acting altogether. Though they all looked the part mostly, I've realized that appearances don't really make a casting. Again, I grew up on these films, so I apologize if it kinda comes off like I'm railing on the actors, but truthfully, most of the issues with the characters, and honestly just the issues in this film in general, have very little to do with the actual acting, and instead the direction and the script. These films simultaneously feel overstuffed and like nothing's happening at all. A lot of the comedy in them hasn't aged well, and more often than not, they make choices at the expense of the characters and their progression. But like, in the grand scheme of things, these films are pretty damn harmless. If the early 2000s attempts at adapting the team were too campy or lighthearted, 2015's Fan Four Stick decided to swing the pendulum in the completely opposite direction, except with far worse results all across the board. I'm not even exaggerating much when I say this film might be the worst superhero film in the last decade, and there's been some pretty damn bad ones, honestly. This time around, Fox wanted a darker, grittier reboot to differentiate from the Tim Story films. Director Josh Trank was coming off of the found footage, realistic semi-superhero film Chronicle in 2012. Early talk about his interpretation of the team suggested a Cronenberg body horror type fare mixed with the typical superhero film vibe, exploring the horrors of suddenly mutating into a superpowered being. And again, in theory, that could have made for a pretty interesting film, but the problem was the execution. From the beginning, Trank's vision for the film crashed heavily with what the executives at Fox wanted. About a third of this film was reworked and reshot, and it's actually incredibly noticeable. You can literally see Kate Mara's wig changing between shots. Reportedly, Trank would throw tantrums during shooting, walk off set isolating himself from everyone, and even apparently destroyed his rental house. All of this mess led to a Frankenstein's monster of a film. The first half being an awkward, slow, colorless, but kinda coherent origin film that takes place almost entirely in a laboratory. And the second half, which was a rushed, disjointed mess, lacking any humor or exploration, with no build up to anything, and the characters that I didn't even know if they liked each other at the end. Like, Sue and Ben literally do not share a single line of dialogue with each other in this entire film, and that's fucking crazy. But all of this culminated in legitimately one of the worst third acts I've ever seen in a film. Trank publicly disowned the film days before its release, tweeting that he had a fantastic cut of the film that the world would never get the chance to see. Audiences and critics both agreed on how shitty the final product was, with it bombing spectacularly at the box office. And the film went down in infamy as the poster boy for what not to do with a superhero reboot. The only good things to come from this film were Michael B. Jordan redeeming himself with another comic book character shortly after, and a pretty funny meme all things considered.
Say that again?
After nearly 2 decades, Marvel Studios finally took its swing at the Fantastic Four with First Steps. Directed by Max Shackman, it skips the whole how they got their power bit and drops us into a 60s inspired Earth where the Fantastic Four are already established heroes and celebrities. Now, I don't think this film is anywhere close to being a bad film. It's easily the best live action Fantastic Four film we've gotten. It looks great, has some inspired castings, and hits a tone that previous Fantastic Four films never quite managed to reach. But I also don't think this film's amazing, and it's most definitely not the best MCU film that came out this year. Hashtag justice for Thunderbolts. If anything, it lands firmly in that good, but maybe a little forgettable category. Like, I don't really think I'll be rushing back to rewatch this one anytime soon. Besides the amazing score and incredible 60s retro-futuristic setting, the thing that worked the best for me was probably the castings. Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby were probably the two standouts for me. Kirby Sue Storm is finally given some agency and a chance to show just how powerful she truly is. And Pascal nails Reed's mixture of brilliance, warmth, and the heavy burden that comes from being the world's smartest man. Even Joseph Quinn, who I wasn't the biggest fan of that casting, surprised me, I guess. My biggest issue with this film can be chalked up to pacing though. This movie really could have used an extra 30-ish minutes, not for more action, but for just some breathing room. Like, entire moments and characters teased in the trailers are literally not in this film at all.
Wait a minute, who are you?
But what this pacing issue really hurts is the family at the center of the film. We're constantly told that this is a family, but outside of a handful of scenes, we don't really get to see them in smaller, more human moments together. Literally, the only thing I remember the Thing doing in this movie is growing a beard, and that was like it. It's like actually pretty clear that they cut out a romantic subplot with him and Natasha Lyonne's character. This film is like all plot all the time, which leaves the family dynamic a bit undercooked for me. I also kind of feel like the emotional conflict involving the planet turning on the team is kind of resolved a bit too easily with just one speech about basically how cute their baby is. And I gotta state again, this is not a bad film at all. and it's probably on the higher end of MCU projects released since Endgame. But for me, it's just not a home run, it's more like a solid double. There's a lot of really good aspects to this film, but also certain issues that hurt this film from being as fantastic as it could be. And it doesn't really help that in the back of my mind, I keep thinking about how this film clearly doesn't exist because the director or one of its 4 writers had some deep connection with the team in this story, but instead more so to establish and introduce the team, specifically Mr. Fantastic and Franklin, for the events of Doomsday and Secret Wars. I feel like 3 things really make a great Fantastic Four adaptation for me. The first being the family aspect. The Fantastic Four in many ways are not your average superhero team like the Avengers or the Justice League. Before anything else, they're a family, and at the heart of any FF story are those relationships. A good Fantastic Four story keeps the family drama at its core, with superheroics flowing naturally from it. Most of, if not all, great Fantastic Four stories have a sense of exploration built into them. Whether that's deep space, alternate dimensions, or just some strange sciencey bullshit. Team are explorers even more than they are heroes. I think the final piece of the puzzle for me when it comes to adapting the team is a genuine sense of optimism regardless of any situation they find themselves in. Again, they're explorers and scientists. A lot of the actions that the members make are driven by a real curiosity and wonder instead of baseless ego. The Fantastic Four should embody a forward-looking sense of progress, even in conflicts, and should be able to balance that feeling with the intense stakes of superhero media should have. So I guess the perfect Fantastic Four film we've all been searching for is in a lot of ways just The Incredibles. Okay, part of me is kinda joking, but I mean if you really like swap some of the colors on the costumes and squint a little bit. For more than 60 years, the Fantastic Four have been maybe the most important pillar to Marvel Comics. Even when the team went away for some time due to pettiness over the film rights, you could really feel their void echoing across the universe. But despite their iconic status, Hollywood just has never been able to bring them to the big screen in a way that captures their unique charm. Each attempt has shown aspects of what the team could be, besides Fan Four Stick.
Say that again?
But none have fully nailed it yet, at least for me. The irony of this whole thing is that the blueprint for a great Fantastic Four movie has been sitting in plain sight for over 2 decades and is literally owned by the same parent company. In many ways, Pixar cracked the Fantastic Four formula without ever having to touch Marvel's IP. The Incredibles proves that you can have a high-stakes action while still being a warm, character-driven story. It cracked the code by rooting the superhuman moments in human relationships. And while I don't think the newest outing was the holy grail of Fantastic Four adaptations, I think it was a really good first step.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
To finally getting this team right. I'm pretty hopeful that Marvel can build on that foundation laid by First Steps and give the Fantastic Four the emotional depth, family dynamics, and adventurous spirit that they deserve, which I honestly think could lead to something pretty damn fantastic. Okay, but on a related note, why the fuck is it so hard for these films to adapt Doctor Doom well? Appreciate you guys once again for making it to the end of another one of these, and for just all the love I've gotten recently. All of that really helps like a lot, and I truly feel like very big things will be happening very soon. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really care for the FF till I read 2015 Secret Wars, and by that point they were already gone from the comics, but now that they've been back for a while, I became a pretty big fan of them, and I'm hopeful for their future movie outlooks, minus the whole RDJ as Doom. But remember to like and subscribe, and let me know what you think of the Fantastic Four down below, and I'll talk to you guys next time.